I loved the writing process, and I hated it because it's so hard and it goes on. There's brilliant moments in it. But I think once people started getting involved, it's very exciting that you know there's 2 or 3 of you getting involved in the writing, and then you start meeting with the producer and the director, and then just suddenly all these people, and it's like this snowball effect. And you get to this point where you're in a studio and you've got 50 or 60 people working on something and that you're responsible for. That's thrilling. That is really exciting.
Like a bat out of hell, there we go, and on it goes. It's Meatloaf. I got one. You took the words right out of my mouth. Must have been when you were kissing me.
That doesn't make sense, idiot.
It's a Meatloaf song. We're singing Meatloaf songs.
We're not singing Meatloaf songs. We're singing songs about me having one testicle.
It was like a big family, and it was good fun, that. And we all got on well, had a good laugh. Apart from when I was saying to people, don't do that. Say it like this.
You can see right across town.
Oi!
Yeah, if you like that sort of thing.
What's the matter?
Oh, someone on rollerblades.
They can be a nuisance.
Can they? I'll just try and distract them, see if they fall over. I do it to rollerbladers, skateboarders, cyclists.
I'm a cyclist.
You better watch yourself.
As I was writing it, because you want it to be perfect, and you realise that so many resources, so many people are getting involved in something, you can't stop writing it. But then also you've got to act in it, and you've got to rehearse that, and you've got to play a character, but you also feel like you're responsible for everyone else. And in a kind of a way, not being able to sort of make any separation there, not to go, actually, I've finished that, now I'm going to do this. And I wasn't very good at that, so the stress would get to you sometimes. You'd be, you know, thinking about 12 different things at once. But that was still thrilling and exciting, so there wasn't any bad things about it.
Yes! Let it snow, let it snow, let it snow.
Shouldn't leave them lying on the floor. Sure could have an accident, you know. Just might slip over and then... Ah! What are you doing? It's an accident.
You did that on purpose.
Just an example of what could happen.
It did happen.
See, well, it's a good example.
Basically, the idea was that you built the flat in the studio, and out the window you had they took a huge photograph of what the view out of a flat on the 15th story would be like. Huge photograph, and lit it and placed it in such a way that they could light it for light and shadow day and night, and it's amazing. You look at it and it looks like you're in the tower block, but it's not. It's all done. And James Dillon, the art director, did a fantastic job of making that seem. We had a brilliant team of technical people, and you can see that in the show. One of the things people love and go on and on about the show are its style and its pace, and that's one thing very particular about the show, is the style and the pace of it.
Where's that?
It was all scripted, and we'd rehearse it as scripted, but if somebody came up with a better line, we'd put it in. If something didn't work, it sounded clumsy in the mouth, but we didn't improvise. No, I mean, it would improvise in the sense that if somebody came up with a line that made it funnier or did something, I said, yeah, keep that in. But I'd also be quite strict. If I thought that was the gag, you couldn't do something which compromised it. And that used to frustrate some actors. And I'm not, Mark's the director, and I'm not a director, but I'd spent sweated blood writing these jokes. I didn't want them to be wasted. So I would actually stop people and say, what you're doing in that scene, in that earlier part of the scene, is disqualifying and taking the comedy away from the joke later on. So can you stop doing that? And they wouldn't, because it gave everyone going, this is great. But I said, no, because that's the joke we're trying to get to, and also the plot point. And it's kind of hard saying that to people because I don't have the tact of a director.
Oi! Yeah. This is one of those perfect days.
No, I'd no ambitions to write a sitcom. I had no ambitions to make a radio show. I thought I just carried on doing good stand-up, and eventually my comedy life would just get better. I didn't realise you had to actually create things. And it was Dan Friedman, who was he was doing he's a stand-up. He was doing a lot of radio stuff, and he'd started working as a producer at the BBC, the radio producer. And he said, I was doing some gigs, and he said, why don't you do something for radio? Why don't you? I said, what do you mean? He says, well, you just come up with an idea and they make it. I said, no, it doesn't happen like that. And he goes, yeah, you just come up with an idea. And he encouraged me to do it. And he produced the first 2 series.
I wouldn't bother watching this. It's rubbish.
I don't mind.
Now we have on display some buried treasure.
How long do you reckon you'll be sitting there?
Brought it in to learn a little more about it. That's very Rachel and Mark will be on their
I thought the only funny people were stand-ups. And then I met all these writers that worked.
Well, that was more on Buzzcocks, and I think the same for me as well. We'd for years just been surrounded by stand-up comedy, stand-up comics, and you always assume these are the elite, and I think far from that nowadays. Once you meet other people in other areas of comedy, you know, of all the many forms of comedy, stand-up is almost the least noble. I think if you're going to use those terms.
No, I think those hidden camera shows are pretty ropey. Oi, no urinating in the pool.
I wasn't.
You're 7 years old, you're bound to be. A lot of sitcoms have that flat bit where you have exposition, where you've got to explain that someone's got to get from A to B or whatever. Look, we'll just get rid of that. We'll just cut to the chase and just fill it with loads of gags. It might have been a bit confusing for that reason as well. You know, people might have listened to it and thought, well, I thought I was listening to a story, and now there's some bloke screaming. A lorry driver.
Wasn't there like a sound effect of a lift going down or something? There was something that explained it very quickly.
And then Mark, the director for the TV show, came up with the idea of the wipe. So we just wipe the screen. So you get the sense of like you're either going. The idea was you either go across to another room, or down, or up, and that gave you a sense of like we can move anywhere we want.
Can I have my pants back?
I had this sort of rule that I made that nothing that could happen in the flats that wasn't plausible, wasn't physically plausible or socially plausible. So everything had to be, there had to be a reason that it could happen there. You couldn't have someone living with a penguin. You couldn't have, just sort of thing that might happen in a sketch show. I don't know. You couldn't have anything.
By the
really
way, there's a whole show of bloke living with a pony.
It's not a horse.
That could never happen. I'd go, it's a comedy show. And this is exactly it. We all have these arbitrary lines that we draw when you go, you couldn't live with a penguin, but you could with a pony.
Yes.
And that, we all have those arbitrary lines of like what is reasonable and acceptable.
You couldn't with a penguin.
Exactly. There's one that you'll stick to the day you die, and I never agree with you.
Well, why don't you get rid of it?
You haven't got kids, have you? Just because I live in a tower block doesn't mean to say my little princess can't have an horse.
But it'd been better if she wanted a bike.
I suppose so.
We built up a working relationship, where we sort of were in tune, and we'd
known each other for a long time, since we both started doing stand-up, really, anyway. We were playing in similar clubs. And in fact, we were both, happened to both be fans of each other. Quite often when someone's a fan of yours, you're like, oh no, that's unfortunate, because I think you stink.
Yeah.
So that's actually a really, really bad reflection of me on my own work, of what I've done. And it's very rare that you'll find two stand-ups, and we actually are both, I hope so, I think we're both really big fans of what each other does.
Well, we'll go out for a drink sometime.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right. Well, so I see the space in my diary.
Okay.
Plenty of space in my pants. See you tomorrow.
When you write comedy, particularly for stand-up and people, and we're kind of known sort of as much as for personas as material, you kind of write to that strength. But of course, if you're a comedy fan, I laugh at slapstick as much as anyone else. And Sean's natural performance style is much more wacky than mine, and mine is much more cynical than yours. But actually, when we write there's a complete crossover. And in real life, I'm hardly happy-go-lucky, but I would write a lot more wacky stuff with you because that was in the room.
Which you'd never use yourself.
Yeah, and you would write a lot more cynical stuff with me because, I have that element in me. And in fact, I remember when we wrote, I can't remember, it might have been Leaving the 20th Century, but there was a joke about swans, and another writer said to me, I can tell what was Sean's line. And I said, no, that wasn't Sean's line. And it happened quite often. People would say, Sean wrote that bit. And I'd say, no, I wrote that bit. I might not have written it if Sean hadn't been in the room.
Yeah.
But I did. And often, just that was all it was. It was rubbish. That's what I thought it was, sure. No, I'm not saying that. But but it's a weird thing that there is a sort of meeting ground of stuff that we maybe wouldn't have come up with on our own that we certainly do together.
You couldn't have taken it all this way around the Beckett Centre. Maybe you went through the churchyard.
No, there's no way I'd do that.
Hey, your back wheel's going round.
It's a plough.
Who do you think you are, Michael Schumacher?
You can only say that if I'm driving a car.
I ain't got a brand new combine harvester.
It's a plough.
Why don't you just ignore them?
I don't mind abuse as long as it's accurate.
What are you doing with that plough, you twat?
Ignore him, Errol. Well, one of the nice things about working with you, Mark, which I really did like working with Mark, was I didn't feel like I was the one who was always going, come on, come on, come on, come on. which when on my own project, after night, you are. And it's quite nice to have somebody who would pushes you as hard as you want. And like Martin Treneman, who's also had, as equal a contribution to Mark, in some shows more, whatever. It's a great contribution. Martin's more passive.
Yeah.
He's a great writer to work with. Love working with him. But I would be the one going, what should we do? Come on, Mark, we'd solve this. So it was quite a relief for me when Mark would come in this sort of flurry of energy and cigarettes. And just go, right. And it was like working in a microwave suddenly. It was like everything was speeded up. So you just have to go, keep up. And it was really like holding on.
Well, you know what? When you told Martin this, he was really upset, and because it sounded like you were reflecting bad on him, and it's not. It's just two different days of working.
Oi! Is that for me? Put it on the slab. Oi! Where's my kiss?
What was wind up?
No, everybody does it. It's tradition.
Huh? What about that other bloke? He didn't give you a kiss.
No, because we're saving up till the end of the week. We're going to have a good old snog. Come on.
One of my favourite scenes in the whole series, and I don't know why it's one of my favourite scenes, is in the first series, and it's the one with the where I'm teaching this sort of page 3 girl to swim, and her husband is a bit mad outside, and I look through the spy hole, and you see a girl in a sari just from behind, and she's got a silver sari on, and she's waiting for a lift. She's waiting for a lift. I went to Pigeon English then. She's waiting for a lift, and she just boots the lift. And I don't know why, I really liked that for some reason, because it was like a little snapshot of something you don't normally see. You don't normally see girls in saris booting lifts.
Yeah.
I don't know why, I'd never seen that. And it was those little images that I was trying to sort of capture, funny little observations that you tend to, if you go out for a walk and you come home and you see your wife or your friend or whatever, and you just say, I just saw a very strange thing just sort of happening in the park. Just those little observations that you see. So I was trying to sort of build up a picture of those, but the characters in the flats weren't. No, they were just they were jokes. They were all joke based, really. So they weren't really. I wouldn't say it's a character-based show like a sketch show that is ran with crazy characters. It was more about scenarios. Really.
Even you and Benny didn't have like particularly defined characters.
Benny did more than me, I suppose.
Yeah, but they weren't. They're not like that crucial.
They're your classic.
And they didn't always necessarily motor along or motivate the plots.
No. Well, yes and no. I don't know really. I'd have to have a really long think about that. The characters.
Hey, we'll wait.
Yeah.
Meow.
The characters were sort of those kind of comic foils that you need for each other. But Benny was saying earlier, Benny.
They're actually a little bit. I was going to say Laurel and Hardy, but they're a little bit any classic double act, aren't they? Yeah. The bully who knows everything, the idiot who knows everything, and the idiot who knows nothing. Yeah, I suppose.
Master servant.
Yeah.
It's my flat. And we didn't write the part for a Chinese actor, and it was just we took ages to come. I just couldn't see anybody in this flat with me. Just couldn't see. And then when Benny came in, and he just seemed to make sense of it, and he did make sense of it all from there.
Hello, Mum. It's your third youngest here, Errol, the Chinese one. How are you all? Did Barry get that job? He's the one with the lisp. I hope so. I like him. Well, I'm living in a tower block. My flatmate's name's Vince. He's all right. Seems a bit confused. Yesterday I told him about Uncle Ray's phone number problem, and he just told it back to me as if it was his story.
The idea of Vince was, and the idea, partly the idea of the show and why he was like that, and why the show was like it was like there was a lot of people in London who kind of get washed up in a place, and they don't really necessarily take part in normal life. They don't have families. They don't interact socially. They lose their touch with their friends. People move on in life. And some people, all their friends move on. They get married. They move out. They kind of just get left somewhere on a shelf. And that was what Vince was like. And he continually sort of was finding new ways to isolate himself, protect himself from actually recognising what his life was like. So that was really the sort of the template for it, the idea for it anyway. And I could see I've done that at points in my life. And London's a very easy place to do that, to just kind of disappear. yet you're surrounded by people. And there are things happening. You meet people every day. And the other thing was that it was about conversations with strangers. I realised at one point in my life, I had 3 or 4 weeks, I was living somewhere, and I only spoke to strangers. You know, apart from the odd conversation on the phone with friends or family, you have to travel 2 hours across London to see someone, say like a friend, for example, if you've chosen to live in some obscure part of South East London or whatever. And that would be it. So that was kind of the life it was. And then with him, it seemed to me comically more, much easier, anyway, for him to be a misery. Someone who was just didn't want to get involved in the world. And now, if I was to do it again, I'd change that, because I think one of the flaws in a lot of English sitcom characters is they aren't complicated enough. They tend to be a bit one note. I know someone who'd enjoy your classes.
Let's send her along.
I warn you now, she can't take a joke.
Is it your girlfriend?
No. No way.
No, I can't really see you with a girl. Or a bloke.
What do you mean?
You're a bit funny. One of the girls said you're creepy, but I said, no, he's all right, just a bit weird.
What? Weird? What sort of...
What's he doing?
Idiot.
He's funny. Oh, I was going to ask you, what are you doing tomorrow night?
Oh, nothing. What are you thinking of?
No. It's Darren's birthday, and we thought it'd be a laugh if only one of us turns up at the pub, and he thinks he's got to spend the whole night with you, and you go for a meal, and we're all at the restaurant.
Such an arsehole.
You don't want to do it?
No, I'll do it. It's very difficult with a character to maintain a story and their characteristics if you start making them more and more open and you suddenly see this other side to them. You say, well, why would he do that then? It makes writing a plot easier if you know 3 or 4 things. In this situation, he's going to do that, and the audience know that, so they know what's going to happen.
I can't remember instances, but I do certainly remember times suggesting, oh, Vince, do this, and Vince wouldn't do that. Yeah. And I got to say, a few times I was like, he might.
Careful.
Is there a doctor?
I love this, in this bit, is when this guy's had a heart attack. We don't know what's happened to him. And someone comes and asks the classic Vince, is there a doctor? Has anyone got any medical experience? And then they're going, no, there's no medical experience. And they're going slower down the ranks of people who any use to this man.
That's good.
Anyone know first aid? Anyone a first aider? Must be a first aider.
Well, I'm a lifeguard.
Oh, fantastic.
I've been up every time I see this bit where he basically gives a tracheotomy to someone who's just had a bit of asthma or something. You just see him run out of this huddle, and everyone's going, "Oh, amazing!" like a great doctor, and he's just got blood dripping from his hands.
Yeah.
Do you know where the toilets are, Annie? Oh, thanks, cheers. I had this routine in my act, which was about...
Which is the end of the show.
Which I thought, I'd really like to use that in a show, which was all about queuing up at an airport and being told that your flight's been oversold. And it happened to me on the way to Ireland to the Kilkenny Festival. And what I actually said was, I went, oh, God, Jesus. And then later on I said, I can't believe this. We've been waiting for fucking ages. And people went, oh, dear. And I remember I didn't say anything, but I remember thinking, well, I've got a perfect, that's what swearing's meant for. And I got this whole idea about this is what swearing is meant for. Situations like this, I'm entitled to swear.
The key phrase is that there's no call for that kind of language. No, this is exactly...
Yeah, this is why swearing was invented.
Yeah.
Look, we have oversold the flight. You have to go on the next flight.
Well, what the fuck do you think you're doing? Selling my fucking ticket?
Really, sir, there is no need to swear.
Yes, there is. There is a need to swear. Oh, very much so. In fact, in situations like this, that swearing was fucking invented for. This is why we've got swear words. The word fuck was created for exactly moments like this. Listen to it. Fuck. I'm not going on my fucking flight. I won't be going to fucking Fin-fucking land. I bet they don't have this problem in Japan, do they? No, because over there, everything works, doesn't it? Everyone does their job. You buy a ticket, you go to the airport, you get on a plane. Yippee! Yeah, I don't even know if I want to go to fucking Finland.